Hello, and welcome to Chatting, a podcast where people chat about how they learn and use English. My name is Sam, I'm a CELTA teacher and a performer, and I have a particular interest in pronunciation and expression. In each episode, non-native and native speakers will chat about their experiences with English, share their advice, and, at the end, I'll give some pronunciation tips for you to take away and practice. So, ready? Let's get chatting. This episode, I'm chatting with Jane. Jane is an English language teacher who currently lives in France. We met online, as we're in different countries, so there was some slight delays and overlaps, but we're all used to this now. We chatted about growing up bilingual, accents, and favourite words. But I started by asking Jane to tell me a little bit about herself.
All right. Well, I'm Jane. I'm an English teacher. I am half Belgian, half British. And I was born in Germany. And now I've been living in France for a few years.
Half British, half Belgian. How would you describe your English?
Well, I've learned English since I was a baby. My father always talked to me in English. He was an English teacher, and he really was, one of his main mission was, okay, I want my kids to speak good English. And, well, basically even now he's just obsessed with English, with his own language. And, I saw it, last week when I was at his place, he's like writing down new expressions that he picked up in a newspaper that he likes. And yeah, he's really, even now, he still does it. He's still like really, when we have just like random conversations. So I think he did a good job. I think he did. Obviously, I went to school in French the whole time. Mm-hmm. So obviously, my level of English is a bit under my level of French, obviously. I did go to Canada. I did do a few things, but most of my school years were in French. So yeah, so my English is more basically, the huge input has been from my father.
Fantastic. It sounds really interesting that he continues to write down expressions. Are you influenced in that way? Do you do the same thing?
Well, I think I do it, but not just in English, because he's really has this idea that, like English is like the top language, and which, I do agree with. I really love English and so on, but since I also speak other languages in my daily life, I do write down stuff, but it's not just English. It's kind of multilingual.
Whereabouts is your father from?
He's from a little village near Aberdeen.
Aha. So his accent, was that any sort of influence on you growing up?
Well, actually, he had already changed his accent because we were in Germany at the time, and he used to be a geography teacher, but decided, saw that, okay, I can be an English teacher. But he also noticed that, his Scottish accent was not really the English that people were trying to learn. They wanted more, received pronunciation. And so he totally changed his accent, and he has, kind of a neutral accent now. And even now, English speakers, they can't really place him. They're like, well, are you like South African or, because obviously when they talk to him, they can see or hear that he's a native, but they can't quite place him.
Are you more aware of your accent because your father changed it, and that you've lived in different countries and you have lots of different influences because you speak different languages?
Well, I think, I'm aware of my accent because, I've recorded myself, and being an English teacher and so on, you're just like, okay, what do I sound like? And now being a mother and try to be an example for my daughter, I'm like, okay, what do I sound like? And I remember, when I went to Canada, I was about 17. I went there for a few months. I was in a host family. I even at the time, I was kind of, really, not obsessed with my accent, but I somehow wanted to sound native. I wanted this was like dear to me. And my host mother said to me, well, I think if you want to sound like a native, you would have to go to a speech therapist or something, because you don't sound like a native.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, she's probably right. She's the native, she knows. But I think, as time goes by, you just learn to accept yourself and just to think, okay, I am not just like my dad, just, like who grew up just only in English. I'm not a real or 100% native. I'm, another version of that. It's a part of who I am as well.
Absolutely. But do you think it matters?
Well, I don't know, but when you grow up in a country that's not yours, like, we were in Germany and I wasn't really like German at all, or even in the German society, since we were going to a French speaking school. At some point you're just like looking for a sense of belonging. And even when I go to Scotland, I'm just like, I really look Scottish when I go about, but once I open my mouth, they're like, oh, this is a French girl. And when I'm in Belgium, it's just like, okay, you're Belgian, but you're not quite Belgian. So there's also this, I think it was more about that,
That's interesting.
Especially when you're younger,
Let's talk about your teaching then. Are there things that you do in your teaching that you have taken from your own learning, or do you think you've developed some things that are specific to you, Jane, as a teacher?
Well, I think, not just related to pronunciation, but I think what I've learned, about, learning languages is that you have to find something that you're, within the language, something you're passionate about or something that you really like. And well, obviously to me, and I think maybe it's because my dad taught me English, but I think for me, having to speak with someone that really interests me or that I really like or really love has definitely been, something that motivates me a lot in learning a language. And I think that's what I tell my students a lot is, if you're into series or if you're into comic books or, there's something about the culture of that language, or is it music, if it's music or anything, that, just like dive into that. Because I think that's like truly motivating.
So about your students then, is there anything when you're teaching that that your students will understand and get quickly? Anything in English that you think, this is easy?
Well, most of my students already speak French. So obviously, you've got many words in common. And, the English speaking culture is just already all over. I mean, in films, you've got all the films coming from America. Now, like Netflix is huge. So, even if it's not their own language, they already have, a concept of mainly Americans. But I mean, music is definitely something that we all do that, sing songs in languages we don't understand. It's just like, you feel it, you don't have to understand it.
It's true.
That's what I really try to, and I think that it's also a part of, me as a person growing up bilingual, is that you don't really have to like fully understand, but you have to have, the concept right. And I see that, some, well, just, who just have one monolingual students, they really struggle. Well, that I think my way of teaching English, because they really want, but what's the equivalent, like more to the translator kind of optic, but what is the exact word in French? I have low level of English, sometimes when we're doing an assessment or something and they have this idea that they want to say it in this way. They have this idea in their head, and I'm always like, well, try to use, the knowledge that to, go around your difficulty, to try to tell me what you want to tell me, but in a different way. Of course, if the level is too low, it's really difficult because you do need the words. But I think, I try to do that a lot with them.
As you teach lower level students, sort of people starting out, younger kids, are there any particular phrases that are popular?
I try to, like introduce little, tongue twisters or little expressions, or the stuff that you would say, like, oh, yummy, yay, hooray, stuff like that you squeeze in, or it's like, oh, this exercise is easy, and then they always go easy peasy lemon squeezy, just have, some I had them in their first year in middle school or secondary school, and now I have them later, and they still they remember that stuff, like, or way more than, I don't know, like complex grammar or that you would teach them. It's just like the fun of the sounds, I do a lot of that. You try to bring some fun into it.
Is there anything that you avoid doing when teaching lower level students?
well, obviously when you have low levels, you really have to prepare a lot in the sense that you don't have to overwhelm them with language, because if not, you lose them. So you really have to, build this kind of trust net and be like, okay, we saw these words and we use them.
Absolutely. I think the idea of not overwhelming people is really important. You must feel like you're making progress.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very easy when you're learning a language to feel, totally like, this is too much for me. And this is, I've had that many times when you're just in the country and you're like within people talking and you're just like, you have a brain overload. You're just like, okay, I can't take any more in. I have to, sink back into myself and go take a nap, because, you're just like, your brain is going, you're trying to keep up and it's not possible. So you have to, really try to avoid that as much as possible, especially in a classroom.
Can I ask you about your own skills? Is there anything about your own English, like grammar or vocabulary or pronunciation, that you would improve if you could?
Well, I would definitely try to improve my pronunciation if I could. When I listen to myself, or, I do a lot of reading at night, bedtime stories. And, sometimes I'm like, oh, I kind of landed badly, but I think it's just, I have to practice more.
Is it the rhythm or is it particular sounds?
I would like to improve my speed of delivery.
Okay.
And I think, yes, some sounds, not many, to be honest, not many, maybe like 2 or 3 that I struggle with, or, but I mean, I can get away with hiding that, I think, basically. Because obviously when I speak French, I think maybe I'm less self-aware, but it just like, it flows better. It just flows better. And I would love to have that more in English, but I know that to have that, I would have to, maybe spend a few years, like constantly, or maybe I would like to have kind of more native friends around me. I have in Spanish, for example, I have my colleague, he's from Argentina, and I'm super happy to be, on a daily basis. So I'm just like talking Spanish to him. And I would just love to have that in English, even though I speak English all the time, but it's just that you're always, you're the top dog in the sense that you're the one with the highest level of English. And it would just be, it's refreshing when you have, like, okay, somebody, they have, things to teach you because their level is higher than yours.
Can you give an example of a sound that you would improve? Because you said there were like 2 or 3 sounds, but
like, for example, this is the typical, but like clothes, I can't do the British way, really, I can't, I just say clothes and then, well, that's it.
I think that sounds pretty good to me. Yeah, don't worry. Final question. Do you have a top piece of advice that you give your students when learning English?
Well, I think the top piece of advice, I think, would be, passion and discipline, because, learning a language, it's a lot of hard work, and it doesn't happen by chance. You really have to, and it's basically, well, I think what my dad passed on to us, it's, this kind of obsession of the right word, or how could you say this in, to express what you want to say. And it doesn't just apply to English, it applies to all languages. And I did that with my students, because we're doing a pen pal project. And it was, okay, what's your favorite word? We did, and the American student did the same, like, what's your favorite, or what are your favorite words? And I actually thought about that, what are my favorite words? And then I realized that I have, favorite expressions.
Were there similar words that came up, or did someone have something completely out of left field?
Well, no, actually, they had very different words, which I found even more interesting.
Yeah.
And some, funny enough, had English words. They wrote down English words, and I was like, oh, yeah, I was like, oh, yeah, I really like how that sounds. And, on the American side, you also had, like amour, like words in French. They were like, oh, it sounds so exotic, and it's just so, romantic and stuff. And you're just like, oh, yeah, I really like that. It was, it's a very interesting exercise. No, definitely.
I was just thinking about my favorite word. I think one of my favorite words is marvelous.
Well, yeah, that's a really cool word. Or even, wonderful. It's just like, it seizes the, or, I'm in awe. I just love that expression.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's just like, you see the person with, their mouth open and being just, oh, it's, I love it.
I'm in awe. I love that phrase. passion and discipline is needed to learn a language. Jane's right, so make sure you find the fun stuff, and this will help you to work hard. Learning words like yummy or expressions like easy peasy lemon squeezy are a great way to play with the sounds of English, and you will remember them forever. So, this episode's pronunciation tip is that tricky change from the v to z in plurals, as Jane described with the word clothes. We really want the tip of the tongue to do the work, and we want one transition, one move, and one continuous sound. This is a difficult one, so a little bit of practice. Start with the v sound, which we practiced in episode 7. Tip of the tongue between the teeth and a gentle buzz. V. Next, try the z sound. Zebra, zoo. Notice, where is your tongue now? It should be just behind your bottom teeth. Now, what we want is the tongue to move a little bit from between the teeth to behind the teeth. So let's go slowly. Z, z. Don't release too much air and try not to open your mouth too much or your teeth. It's just a movement with the tongue. Clothes, clothes. To practice, I have 3 more examples of words with this ending in the plural. First, 1 mouth, 2 mouths. Try this sentence. How many mouths are we feeding today? Next, I bathe in the bath. He or she bathes. Try this sentence. He bathes in milk. She bathes in water. Finally, you breathe. He or she breathes. Try this sentence. When she breathes in, he breathes out. Final practice. Let's put the 3 words together in one sentence. He breathes. She bathes. Our mouths are open. Over to you to practice. So there we are. The transcript of this episode is available to read on the podcast's webpage, so take a look. Join me next time for more pronunciation and grammar tips, more advice, and most importantly, more chatting. My thanks again to Jane, and for her music, a massive thanks to the wonderful Mara Carlisle. Bye for now.